Okay. Well, hi, Ted. Thanks for having us up to your beautiful home in Vermont today.
Welcome.
Perfect. Couldn't
We
have picked a nicer time.
considering the weather a week out, I think we nailed it with good weather.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, everybody, my name's Terry Highland. I'm the Director of Community Relations for KBIC, the David Krempels Brain Injury Center. And sitting across from me is Ted King Jr., a pro cyclist and general good guy who has helped us out with a little event called the King Challenge for the past 14 years. And so, Ted, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into cycling and what the connection to KBIC is?
Sure. So I grew up in Brentwood, New Hampshire, in the general seacoast area, and played. I mean, I was always athletic. I really enjoyed sports. I played high school. I played sports all through high school. Generally, hockey was my biggest go-to, and then it was about time to set off to college, and I was going to try to put an emphasis on academics. And my older brother, I have an older brother, Robbie, 3 years my senior. He had gone to Holderness School and found and fell in love with cycling. So then I set off to Middlebury College, relatively down the road here in Vermont. And I watched him coincidentally win the first of three of his collegiate national titles. And so there I am as a freshman in the days and weeks afterwards, thinking, okay, well, I haven't gotten into other sports in college, and I could probably be the recipient of some bicycle hand-me-downs and some of his leftover stuff. And it seemed to make sense. So I picked up cycling in college, which is relatively late, but I ended up turning that into a cycling career and raced straight out of college, raced 3 years domestically, and then overseas for the next 7 years. So that brought us to the end of 2015, and I would have anticipated that would have been the end of my career, but then gravel has become a really popular thing in the cycling world, and I was the first guy to go from the World Tour to gravel, and so that started Career 2.0 in 2016, and it's still oddly, unexpectedly going strong.
Great. Yeah, I know last year we had talked a little bit about gravel and how that was really taking off for you, so I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really interesting sort of new take on what I think a non-cyclist would think cycling is. Road cycles, that's all they do is go down pavement, and
Yeah.
but you're taking essentially road cycles on gravel, yes?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, the bikes are a little bit more robust. I mean, it's wider tires. Basically, the technology that has come to cycling lately: tubeless tires, wider tires, bigger gear ratios. That allows you to explore quite a bit more and find steeper roads or rough terrain and go off road. So we have a little bit of that in the King Challenge towards the end over in the Newmarket. In the Newmarket area,
Yes.
we hit some gravel.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, I mean, to go into the weeds a little bit, we are blessed with really nice roads in the Seacoast and very, very little gravel. So we've explored pretty tirelessly the gravel options, and it's just, we'd really have to move the venue entirely to pick a gravel event.
Sure, sure. Well, before we get too much into the event, because I know we really do have some killer routes. It's quite a thing to see. But
Hmm.
tell me a little bit more about the KBIC connection. So obviously you're a cyclist, but what made you think cycling KBIC? What's the history there?
Sure. So let's see. I was a sophomore in college. Yeah, I guess I was. And the reason I don't know the timing as well as you might think I would, I started college as a Feb, so I started in February of, therefore, what would have been my quote second semester. So I'm basically askew by one semester. Anyway, I go off to college, and relatively early in my college career, college life, collegiate academic life, I get a call on the phone coming back from spring break. My spring break was going to a bike race, as you might imagine. So I was somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. It was the first weekend of spring break. I was doing a race, I want to say in like the New Jersey area. And I was on the way home back to visit my folks in New Hampshire. And I got a call from my mom saying, Dad's in the hospital, which did not alarm me in any way because he was an orthopedic surgeon. And it didn't strike me that that was interesting. Lo and behold, he was in the hospital as a patient as opposed to as a surgeon, as a person helping. So, yeah, I mean, I get my bearings about me, and there I am trying to pay a toll on the New Jersey Turnpike, and I remember just sobbing paying the toll booth attendant, not having any idea what the ramification was. My mom had said, "Dad's in the hospital. He's in the ER. He's had a stroke," and yeah, it was a tough drive home the next 5 or 6 hours and make it to Exeter and visit him. And my mom was there, and my aunt and uncle had been visiting from out of town, and they were there, and yeah, that was just sort of the beginning of the rest of our lives, his life, my life, my mom's life. And yeah, I mean, the what has happened is he had a very sizable stroke, a brain bleed. And you basically go through the traditional therapies. You sort of exhaust insurance dollars, and you get to a point that you're cast out into the world. And somewhere along the line in the ensuing nonstop conversations that take place, someone had suggested visit the Krempel Center. At that point, I think it was still very young. I mean, this is in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I had a friend who I guess I'd heard the term before because I had a friend who had gone through a program with multiple concussions, and so this begins the synapse creation of what brain injury really is. So the longer story short is my dad was involved from earliest phases of what is now KBIC, David Krempel's Brain Injury Center, as a member, and a very proud member and an active member, and I can sort of see the next few years of his life. He was at a point where he resumed the ability to drive. So he was driving, he would drive other members, and over time he lost the ability to drive, but then other members would drive him, and my mom drove him over the years, and neighbors and friends and folks really came out of the woodwork to help there. So then, let's see, probably around 2010, Arlen Chaffee reached out to me, and Arlen, at that point we were acquainted. He's gone on to become a very good friend. He said, "Hey, let's create a fundraising ride. Let's create an event. Let's create something to benefit the KBIC, the Krempel's Brain Injury Center." And I thought, great, yeah, it's the kind of thing that I want to do anyway, but I don't have the bandwidth to do. I'm living overseas, and I love coming back to New England and riding on these home roads, but it's the kind of thing that I couldn't just pick up and be like, I'm going to create an event. So with Arlen's tireless hard work, we created, I want to say in 2011, the first ever King Challenge. And it's been a blast for the subsequent 14 years.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. And it's so nice to see something like the King Challenge born out of a tragedy like your father's stroke. And, it's amazing when people can find the good, find a purpose out of something like that. And I actually hadn't heard before that your father was driving other members and had that level of participation in the program. That's amazing to hear. Mm-hmm. For some context for folks that might not know, KBIC is a brain injury center in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The ride, the King Challenge that we're referencing, rides out of Stratham, New Hampshire. And Ted, you're from Brentwood?
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. So all seacoast area and a lot of connections there. So knew the roads well already. Arlen from the World of 5Ks also knew the roads well already. And you guys really picked a heck of a route, which we're going to get into momentarily. Mm-hmm. That first King Challenge, I want to talk about that a little bit. So obviously you pulled this idea together, knowing that it's a benefit ride for KBIC, which is a nonprofit, knowing that your father had a connection. What did that look like that first year? What recollections do you have?
Gosh. By the time you host more than a dozen of them, they do blend together. In the early years, I was inviting friends for my World Tour days. Timmy Duggan was a very good friend, teammate. I mean, at that point, I'm still racing a bike, right? I'm overseas for a good 8, 9, 10 months out of the year. And so Timmy Duggan, There's a teammate on the team that I was on that time, and he had survived a pretty massive TBI himself, and then went on to become an Olympian on the bike. So a pretty miraculous story. So he would be a showcase rider, and a lot of other teammates and friends that I was connected in the cycling industry were there. I always loved coming back to New England and participating in the Wednesday night worlds at Exeter Cycles. I mean, that's what we call the local super fast hard ride on Wednesday night every Wednesday all throughout the spring and summer. And just relying on this community that I loved being part of for so many of my early years. They came out in spades, and it was just a fun event, you know? I mean, riding on my home roads, having great food and a party and atmosphere afterwards, that is what made it such a special event. And especially the time of year, you know, it's sort of like, given that it's always been mid-October, it's like we've gone through the hard work of the spring, you make it through a beautiful summer, and then you cap off a cycling season in the fall with just a beautiful ride.
Right. Yeah, it is truly stunning, and I think now's the perfect opportunity to talk a little bit more about those route options. So there's 3 route options, a 15, a 30, and a 60-mile course. Is that correct?
Yeah, ish.
Yep.
I say 10, 30, and 60.
There you go.
So, I mean, and then it's give or take. I want to say the 10 is actually about 12. I think the 30 is a pretty true 30, and the 60 is a 100 kilometer, so it's a 62 mile metric century.
Nice. Nice. And so these routes, are they all about sort of the same skill level, just different lengths, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think you sort of tend to what distance, what kind of length, how much time you want to spend on the bike kind of deal. We've had some Krempels Center members, KBIC members, ride the shortest route. And so, yeah, we also have the adaptive docking tour on site, on campus. But then we've also had members do the real 10 mile.
Yeah.
And the 30 is, yeah, I mean, you can reliably, if you can do that in 2 to 3 hours, that is a great route for you. And then the longest route, the 62 mile, we tend to do that in about 3.5 hours, including stops. So it's a pretty speedy route. But yeah, I mean, there are so many events that I do over the years that are races that are meant to be, you fire the gun and you are racing to the finish line. We ride swiftly and stop and embrace a feed zone and embrace conversation, and then you ride to the next one and the same thing happens, and then there's a nice celebration as we roll in at the finish.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely a fun event over anything else.
So I don't want to misquote it. I'll see if you can remember. You've called it the most
fun ride that I do all year, the most impactful, the most meaningful.
I think it was the most civilized, was the word you used?
Civilized. I would probably say that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's camaraderie.
There is camaraderie, and it's very safe, you know, that's one of the biggest reasons that people have moved to gravel, is because paved roads are not safe, and you're you know, at the whim of open traffic. But we have relatively rolling enclosure. We have lead motos all through the first hour anyway. We have police at every intersection, so it just lends to a very civilized ride.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was the first thing I took away from it, not being a cyclist, but hearing that, you know, not a competition, really just about the mission, about camaraderie, supporting this cause and having a great time doing something you love.
Bingo.
Yeah. So on these various routes, what would be the optimal bike to take on this ride?
Now, the majority of the ride for sure is on paved roads. There is a little bit of gravel towards the end, which is fun. It's very tame gravel, so don't be intimidated. But, you know, the general tool of choice is a road bike. That being said, a gravel bike would work really well. We've seen plenty of folks on mountain bikes, sort of a run what you brung kind of attitude, like bring the bike that is most comfortable for you. We've had a couple tandems. And truth be told, you can bring your e-bike. There's a lot of events out there that are disallowing e-bikes. I'm a firm believer that one e-bike is replacing a car on the road, or is at least just another person riding a bike who wouldn't otherwise be riding. So by all means, bring your e-bike. I think that's a great addition to the ride.
Good to hear.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Unicycle,
For sure.
bike for 3, tall bike, whatever you got, bring it.
What's the original?
Oh, the penny farthing?
Yes. Penny farther?
Bring your penny farthing.
Yes, please.
Bring your, it's got 2 wheels or 3 or 4, bring it.
Yep. As long as it's pedals.
Yes.
All right, Ted. So this event, like we said, we're going on year 14. And last year I was there, was I think our first rain year ever. So that was an interesting change, but still 100 people rode the 60. Is that right? Or 30?
I honestly don't know. Yeah, it was our first true rain year.
Yeah.
I think in the previous 12 editions, we had something like 10 minutes of rain over
Right.
the entire history of the event, which is remarkable. You know, I mean, it gets to be a time of the year that you could have, the weather's cooling off. It's good fall foliage weather, but you could have some rain. So yeah, we embraced the rain.
Mm-hmm.
We still had a great day.
Yep.
I mean, if you can survive a pandemic, which we did,
Mm-hmm.
and successfully ride through that, then yeah, a little rain isn't going to dissuade
Yeah.
King Challenge riders.
Yep. And actually, that brings me back. So during COVID, the pandemic, of course, we did take the ride full virtual for at least 1 year, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But still, ton of participation. Donations came pouring in, so that was amazing to see the community rally around the need, even though they weren't able to out there be
Sure.
riding together.
Yeah, and we had offered a virtual ride for years, and obviously it wasn't until a global pandemic that a lot of people really found that a good way to participate. But I mean, there have been people all throughout the country, and frankly throughout the world, individuals who have wanted to participate in the ride and are up for the great fundraising efforts that we have, and fundraising prizes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool to see the level of participation before and during and after COVID.
Yeah. I think we should touch on that actually briefly. Some more context for those who are new to the ride. Over the years, over this term of almost 14 years, the King Challenge has raised over $1 million for KBIC. A good year, we generally do well over $100,000 per year, and it's stunning that that's the impact that this ride has had. And more so on that, all support that KBIC offers to survivors of brain injury, we generally want them to feel as included in their communities as possible. So the ride, we touched on this briefly, has that alternative ride called the DCAT, Adaptive Ride.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go into that briefly, and your father rode that.
Yeah, we've got some great pictures of that. So given that the ride takes place at the Timberland World Headquarters in Stratham, it's a large footprint. It's a big area upon which we can ride. So, we're safely back in this wooded area, and then there's a paved route that, gosh, I don't know how far it is, a half mile or so, a quarter mile,
I think,
something.
yeah, 3/4 mile.
Okay, 3/4 mile.
Yep.
And yeah, I think a coordinated effort between Arlen and the Krempel Center was, how do we create liveliness all throughout the day while we're waiting for the longest routes to come in? And it was created this adaptive tour. And so, yeah, members can ride. It seems to draw a great deal of interest and connectivity. I mean, there are a lot of people who ride the King Challenge for any number of reasons, but many of whom don't necessarily know what the Krempel Center is, what KBIC is. So showing that connection there on site during the event, I think really draws tremendous interest.
Mm.
And we do other things throughout. We also have the fireside chat the Friday before. So as much as it is a one-day event, it's a Saturday event. We try to do some things to generate interest and conversation throughout the weekend. So the fireside chat the day before is a really good way to, especially bring people from out of town who are trying to make a long weekend out of it. And so yeah, visit KBIC, visit the center, and go to morning meeting and see what this place and this organization is all about.
One thing I love to see at the DCAT is the partner cycles in the adaptive tour. So we'll have a 3-wheeler in the front, and then you've seen them for children, like sort of the tote behind single seats, but this one has a pedal.
Oh,
so
no
the
kidding.
person in the back can help the person in the front on hills and corners and that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
And so there's been some mother-daughter teams, for example.
Uh-huh.
KBIC members have done the adaptive tour with that. Really, really great stuff to see. Very
That's
inspiring.
super cool.
So again, coming into year 14, obviously the event is hugely impactful for KBIC, and we have every intent to move forward with the event in perpetuity to make sure it keeps impacting. But you have some news that this is your last year of formal participation. Is that right?
This 2024 will be my last year as a figurehead of the event. You know, I'm at a season of life that things are very busy with 2 little kids. You know, I've gone from, in the past 14 years that we've been participating, the son of a brain injury survivor. I still am the son of a brain injury survivor. Dad's time at KBIC is certainly less and less, and at this point he's unable to go. I still love the ability to go. It is more and more infrequently, so much so that now it's, you know, fireside chat and that's about it. And yeah, now with our kids of very that high activity age, you know, Saturdays in October when school's back in session, it's become very busy. So with a lot of discussion and conversation, it's with a celebrated heavy heart that I'm not going to be at the helm. I want to see the ride go forward and continue in perpetuity. You know, I want the ride to succeed for forever. I don't want it to exist purely because I'm there, because there will be a point that I know I'm unable to go. So yeah, I want the momentum to continue, and so we're really hoping for a fantastic 2024.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you able to come this last time, at least for sure.
Yes.
It's probably not a formal goodbye, but more of a see you later when I can come type situation. But we
Accurate.
have committed, you know, you and I have talked, and Arlen, who will also be interviewed at some point, have talked. And this event is just so impactful. You really have set us up for success, whether you're able to formally participate and promote or not. So the members love the event, the impact that it has for KBIC financially. It will all live on, but it only started because of you guys. So we're super grateful for that, and we'll make sure that we keep it going.
Yeah. Well, that's outstanding. Yeah. I mean, I'm over the moon that Arlen reached out to me when he did. You know, it was a risk on his part to say, hey, let's create this event. And I could have just as easily said, you know what, I'm in a busy phase of life then, but it has just become such a cornerstone of our fall and our season, and it's been awesome to be able to introduce so many people to KBIC and its mission and its membership, and long live KBIC and King Challenge.
All right, Ted, so headed into our 14th year, we're super excited to be back October 12th in Stratham. And for all of you, extra information and to register, which is open now, you can go to www.kingchallenge.org. The event is thrilling for anybody, whether you're a cyclist or not. We'd highly recommend checking out the expo area, whether you want to ride the rides or just come and see the sights. We have amazing food, we have amazing activities for family, and of course you can view the DCAT, which operates on site, the adaptive tour. So please come October 12th, 2024. We'll see Teddy there for his final ride with KBIC, and it should be a great day.
It's going to be a great day. Yeah, October 12th, kingchallenge.org. Check it out. Come join us. Join the ride. Fundraise with us. Come hang out with the food vendors, the fun stuff to do with the kids afterwards. So kingchallenge.org. Check it out.